I hereby call the Brockton School Committee to order. We are here at the Dr. William H. Arnone Theater, the Arnone School, 135 Belmont Street, Brockton 02301, it being Tuesday, December 3, 2024. It is a little bit after 7 o'clock. We did have a finance subcommittee meeting that started at 5:30. That's why we're a little tardy. I just want to read into the record the following. Dear visitors, welcome to the meeting of the Brockton School Committee. This is the agenda that will be discussed this evening. Please note the hearing of visitors is included. If you have a statement or question, please give your name to the secretary. In addition to attending, the public can view this meeting via television on Comcast Channel 8 and also the 1071 HD version, and online via the following link, which is www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. At this time, I would ask that we please stand and salute the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will establish an official quorum. Myself and Vice Chair Rodriguez were notified that Mr. Sullivan is unable to join us this evening. I will establish a quorum by the roll. Mr. Vega? Here. Mr. Gomes? Here. Ms. Oliver?
Here.
Vice Chair?
Here.
Ms. Azak?
Here.
I believe, Mr. Sullivan, are you on via Teams?
Here.
Thank you. And I'm here as well. We have established a quorum. We also have the Clerk Secretary of the School Committee, Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Priya Tahiliani here. That established number one. Number two, hearing of visitors. Pursuant to School Committee policy, each person requesting to speak shall be allotted a maximum of 3 minutes. Since the period is limited to 15 minutes in total, a total of 5 people shall be permitted to speak on a first-come, first-served basis. I want to thank Melinda Campbell. Mrs. Campbell put out the sign-up sheet. Nobody has signed in today, so we have no hearing of visitors. Before we go to the report of the Superintendent of the Schools, Dr. Tahiliani, Agenda 3, I would respectfully ask that we take number 5 out of order, unfinished business. Could I get a motion, please? Agenda 538.
Agenda 538.
That's a form of motion. Is there a second, please? Second. Motion was made for the minutes. Vice Chair Rodriguez, properly seconded by Mr. Vega. I'll call the roll. Mr. Vega? Yes. Mr. Gomes?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan, please?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Again, unfinished business, 3A, 3B, which is FY 2025 Comprehensive School Health Services CSHS grant, in the amount of $350,000 and no cents. And then FY 2025 FC 0348 Multilingual Newcomer and Homeless Support Grant, DESI, the amount of $75,000 even. Vice Chair, please.
Thank you. These were 2 items that were postponed for further clarification. I believe we do, Superintendent, we do have the representatives here. I believe they want to give a presentation if they could take the podium.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hi, everyone. Thank you for asking me to speak. My name is Linda Cahill, Dr. Linda Cahill. I am the Director of Nurses for the school system. So we have a grant currently. It's called the Comprehensive School Health Services Grant, otherwise known as CSHS. So our history, this grant we've had for a little bit. So it started in FY 2019, and it's going to go to FY 2029. And this year we have $350,000 for this year. Our previous grant was the Essential School Health Services Grant, and that went from FY 2009 to FY 2018. So our previous grants to that were also dating back to 1996. Through the Department of Health, Department of Public Health, with Lorraine Kuplast manning that grant. So Massachusetts Department of Public Health proposes to provide quality comprehensive health services to all students to the Brockton Public Schools. It is on a multidisciplinary approach, ensuring that students' needs are met. All yearly budgets have to be pre-approved through MDPH and reconciled every year. So I'm going to break down the categories for spending. We have direct care and support staff, equipment and supplies, professional development, and nursing policies and procedures committee. So our direct care and support staff, it covers the salaries of a regional consultant, case manager, an administrative assistant, and we've used the funds also to provide supplemental subs to cover for screenings, for health screenings. So you may ask, what does the Southeastern Regional Consultant Nurse do? And currently that's Dr. Ann Linehan, and she's been with the school system for a while. She provides consultation to school nurses in Southeast Massachusetts. She hosts and attends regular meetings sponsored by MDPH. She conducts site visits to ensure that nurses' offices adhere to the standards according to the guidelines set forth by MDPH. She completes our monthly and yearly statistic reports. She is really considered an expert with our electronic health record, which is called SNAP, and it's stands for a School Nurse Assistant Program. So she's got a little bit of extra funding for travel and for statewide meetings. So we also have a case manager, and that is Linda Clegg. She's in our office as well, and she's been in this role for 5 years. She assists with the complex medical cases and coordinates their care. She communicates with students' medical and school teams. She attends team meetings. She conducts home visits to assess their needs, the children's needs. She educates nursing staff on students' care and helps to develop their care plans. She identifies the homeless students and assesses their medical needs as well. And she has also helped with developing and training our staff on Medicaid billing procedures for our electronic health record. Our administrative assistant is Donna Breckner. She assists with the day-to-day operations of our health services office. She helps coordinate coverage for all the schools. She orders all the supplies for the nurses' offices. She keeps track of the budgets. She keeps track of our nursing licenses, and she keeps track of our CPR certifications. She does payroll, she answers the phones, and she triages issues, and she helps myself, the nursing director, the case manager, and the Southeast Regional Advisor. So you wanted to know what we did with our spending previously. We bought a lot of equipment. We bought laptops, we bought iPads for students with diabetes, thermometers, stethoscopes, BP cuffs, blood pressure cuffs, hearing and vision machines, CPR mannequins, wheelchairs, evacuation chairs, NEB machines, mini ice machines. We bought office equipment, fax machines, shredders, office chairs, desk medication fridges. And we were also able to pay for the software for a bit, but our grant stipulation through DPH stated that we had, the district had to absorb the cost of the electronic health record, which that happened this past year. And we've also covered CPR training links and DVDs. So last year we started a policy and protocol nursing committee. So that was the first year. We evaluated our emergency form, which was very outdated. And we updated that, it went through cabinet, it was approved, and so this year was the first year we have the new emergency form. We looked at our medication policy, we updated our health service pamphlet, we updated our COVID guidelines according to the state guidelines, and we started working on a school nurse mentoring program. And we deleted obsolete procedures such as our BMI letters. We don't send them out unless a parent asks for it. So as far as professional development, in the past, we have spent funds through Boston University, Northeastern University, and the Massachusetts School Nursing Organization. So various programs that we've attended are equity in school health, leadership, medical care for gender expansive youth, culturally sensitive nursing care, and we've reimbursed for nurses attending conferences. So here are the current salaries. Case manager, $117,000, regional consultant, $143,000, administrative assistant, $49,000. So these are BEA members, except for our administrative assistant is in a union position as well. And they've been in their positions for the last 5 years anyways. So this is our plan for this year. We're going to buy more equipment and office furniture. As you well know, things break, and so we have to replace them. We are also going to buy another hearing machine, a spot vision screener, and that's a tool that's amazing for young kids. It's like a big camera you put in front of the child's face, and it's for kids under the age of 6 and kids that can't cooperate with the screening. It actually takes a picture. The room has to be dark. It takes a picture of the kid's retinas and can actually diagnose. And what happens is, when we have a kid that's not within normal range, we will print out a paper for the child to take home to their parent, and the parent brings that paper to the ophthalmologist, and it will actually diagnose what's wrong with the kid's vision, whether it be presbyopia or myopia. It's a great tool. We have 3. We're going to buy another one. The nurses absolutely love it. It's a great time saver. It's great for our kids with special needs, so it's a worthwhile expense. We're going to buy more CPR mannequins. We need to train more folks in CPR. Firmly believe that. And then more sim equipment. So we have mannequins now, a few of them that have G-tubes, ostomies, and tracheostomies, and the prices of those vary. So we can actually train the nurses that aren't comfortable when we have a student that has a G-tube. We don't have many kids with trachs. We have one in system now and one that is going to start. So professional development for this year, we're going to spend about $2,000. So far, we've had concussion training, 51A training, and we just had a hands-on training with tracheostomies and G-tubes. We had an outside company come in and show the nurses, how to change a trach, how to change a G-tube if it falls out or if the kid pulls it out. And then that was a great PD for our nurses. So other potential trainings for this year, we want to talk about emergency care within the school setting, caring for our new arrivals. Again, more CPR as needed. We're currently training our coaches, and then we're going to train various folks at different schools, people that want to be trained. And then the nurses want an electronic health record report update. So this year also, we're going to continue with our nursing procedure policy update committee. Last year, we had 12 nurses on that committee. The nurses will have to apply again, and this is an after-hours meetings. Last year, we wanted to have 20 meetings, but we didn't quite have 20 because of weather and whatnot. And so this year, we want to continue with a nurse mentoring program, our Code Blue policy, which is really outdated, and people want a new lice policy. And that's it. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. Cahill.
Sure.
I'll start with Ms. Oliver, followed by Mr. Gomes, please.
Thank you. I'm so glad you came and did this presentation, Dr. Cahill. I know I've spoken to you a few times via email. As a registered nurse myself, this is my love, my passion. I'm glad you basically wrote out everything that the money's going to be spent. I think this is a great, I'm so glad about the grant, how it's going to be spent, and exactly how our nurse is going to be, more education, and our kids are going to be taken care of. I was extremely surprised that we have neb machines in our school.
Yes.
Until my daughter needed it because she was having an asthma attack, and I was like, no, we have asthma neb treatment here, and I was like, when did Brockton High get, the school system get a neb machine? Like, yeah, we have it here. It's all good. She'll be fine. And that it makes it, as a mom, I was so relieved that we were able to have that emergency equipment in case of an asthma attack for any child in the Brockton system. But just all the programs, the SNAP, electrics, record system, I love it. I've worked with it. I was a school nurse for 8 years. So everything that Brockton school system have as a school nurse department, thank you. You're doing a great job. I've talked to a lot of school nurses at South and also Arnone. They do an incredible job. And I know a lot of students that also has a lot of disabilities that comes here, and they're very impressed of what nurses do here daily and all the hard work they do. If you ever need a nurse that volunteers to do trach emergency, I specialize in that, and
Oh,
also
great.
G-tube.
Oh, good.
That's
good.
what I do daily, so if you ever need somebody to come and train, I'll volunteer
Oh,
for
that's
free.
great. Oh, that's great.
That's what I do
great.
daily,
Oh,
so, and I
that's
also
great.
train and educate other nurses, so
Oh, that's
thank you
great.
for all the hard work you do.
Oh, you're
I
welcome.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Oh, and
Thank
we
you.
appreciate our nurses for sure.
Thank you,
Thank
Ms. Oliver.
you.
Mr. Gomes, please.
Again, thank you for the presentation. I believe this is a great investment, and I'm loving seeing these new grants coming in and being implemented. I just had a few questions. You've answered some of those. For instance, I was wondering, are these new staff that we're going to hire, and when not? You've answered that question. One thing that, just to clarify, so they all full-time?
They're all full-time.
All full-time. And then I know that we're going to use this grant to cover their salaries and other expenses. Is that always the case, or what happens when the grant runs out? Do we apply for more, or?
We will, well, there will be a new grant, I'm sure, and we'll rewrite for the new grant. So Brockton has a great history of getting grants through DPH because we do great work with DPH.
And then is there any other funding sources for these positions and what they're doing?
Not that I know
no.
of, but is it Ms. Jackson usually sends me things if there's some sort of grant coming that might be beneficial to our department. So, and I always keep my eye out too.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully we'll keep applying to these and getting them, but I appreciate all the work you guys do. I think this is a good investment.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
All
Mr.
right.
Gomes. Any other questions for Dr. Cahill? Vice Chair, please.
Presentation. The only question I have is on the regional consultant. Is that price range something that your department spends yearly, or is that something that you just think?
No,
that you're gonna
that's yearly.
spend? That's yearly?
Yeah, that's her salary, and I mean, she's been here 20 some odd years, so, you know, and she's union position too, so,
On the regional consultant?
yes.
Oh, okay. That was one of those sticking points that popped out at me. I wanted
Yeah.
a little bit of clarification.
Yeah.
But thank you for your presentation and all the services that you
Oh,
and the nursing
you're
staff
welcome,
do
you're
for
very
the-
welcome,
for the
yes.
district. So I have no other further questions, but I will put a motion if nobody has any. Motion to approve the Health Services CSHS grant in the form of $350,000.
Formal
For-
motion. Motion was made by Vice Chair, was properly seconded by Ms. Oliver. I'll call the roll, please. Mr. Vega? Yes. Mr. Gomes?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan, please.
His
Yes.
frozen.
He's
frozen.
frozen.
Oh, he said yes.
Tim, did you say yes? I'm sorry.
Yes, I did.
Okay. I'm a yes as well, so that passes. Thank
All
you,
right,
Dr.
thank you.
Cahill.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Cahill.
Thank you.
Next matter is the Newcomer and Homeless Support Grant, DESI, $75,000.
Yes. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I don't have a presentation. I don't have a nice PowerPoint, sorry, everyone. But I just want to kind of give a brief overview of this grant. This is a DESI allocation that has been given to us based on the numbers of newcomers that we have received in the last year, as well as our English learners who are currently experiencing homelessness. So they gave us $75,000 with a charge of ensuring that students are able to participate in the full life of the school. And so they said we could use for personal care items, for family engagement nights, for high quality instruction, professional development, and for kind of translation and interpretation. So you've approved and we've been awarded the ESL Hub grant. So we didn't really need professional development funds at this time because we have the funds that are being come from the 181 grant. So the team met and we identified some things that we would like to do to ensure that kids have access to all of the opportunities that the school have to offer. So we did put in a budget for personal care items that we can purchase and have in stock. We put in money for unexpected needs that families and children might have. And then we identified several family literacy nights. Those are family engagement nights. We put in transportation to those nights for homeless students, as well as for our launch program. The Title III grant is funding a vacation camp for newcomers in the launch program, so we can ensure that our students who are experiencing homelessness can attend that event, opportunity as well. And then we put in some extra money for Lion Bridge. You know, Lion Bridge is a telephonic translation tool that is used for our low incidence languages, and so when a community facilitator is unavailable, as well as for some written translation to support the work that we're doing. So that's a brief overview of the grant. We've been awarded the grant, but we haven't been awarded the grant. So it's awarded pending funding on the GEMS site. So if you have any questions.
I'll start with Mr. Vega, please.
Thank you. This is incredibly important work, especially as we have an ongoing conversation about homelessness in Brockton. How many students do you anticipate benefiting from these funds?
So I believe there were over 400 students that were identified as an English learner experiencing homelessness. But we've also had, this grant is for newcomers as well, and we had, I always pull out this number, 885 new students were in our classrooms on June 20th of last year that came in after October 1st. So when we factor in all the transiency of people coming and going, there were 885 more students just from October 2nd to June in our classrooms. So it's eligible for newcomers and for those English learners who are experiencing homelessness. What we want to do is we want to be responsive to the needs of the students so that they can be part of their school community. And so we're going to rely on the guidance counselors, we're going to rely on the community facilitators, we're going to really rely on our parent advocates who are supporting those families with external services. So they know those who are in need today, and they will be the first point of contact of those who are in need tomorrow. I sent out an email because we were notified that the money had been allocated to us back in October, and we still haven't gotten the money. So I sent an email to Desi this afternoon saying, just want to check in on it and see is it coming, because Christmas is around the corner and vacation is around the corner and cold weather is around the corner, and all of these things could be really, really useful to our kids.
Thank you for the work you're doing. Thank you for this information.
My
Thank
pleasure.
Thank you, Ms. Vega. Any additional questions at this time? Is there a motion, please?
Motion to approve the $75,000 towards the multilingual newcomer and homeless support grant.
Second.
Motion was made by Mr. Vega, was properly seconded by Ms. Oliver. I'll call the roll at this time. Mr. Vega?
Yes.
Mr. Bowles?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Thank you. And I'm a yes as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Thank
day.
you.
That concludes Agenda 5. Thanks for taking that out of order. We will now go back to Agenda 3, Report of Superintendent of Schools, please.
Thank you, and I respectfully request that we take item B, the finance update, first, out of
Sure,
order,
sure.
because Open Architects is still with us and is
course.
able to present the year-to-date budget
No
report.
objections? Seeing none? Of course. Thank you.
So at this
All
time,
right,
I'll
just give me 1 second.
and so TJ, Tracy's also downloaded it in case you're unable, but you should be able to share your screen
Oh.
as well. But in case you have trouble
Okay,
with
thank
it,
you.
we also have it downloaded here.
Yeah, I might need Tracy to share.
Okay.
Can you guys see the all funds?
Yes.
Was that a yes?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So this is the report that we are using in Brockton Public Schools to kind of keep an eye on things every month, every couple of weeks. So this is a year-to-date budget report that shows what is spent on net school spending and non-net school spending. And in this case, we've broken it by location and department. And I don't know if anyone's ever seen one of these before, so I'll walk you through kind of what each thing means. And then we can have a conversation. So we have the FY25 original budget. We have the transfer and adjustments, which is moving money in and out. This is not reflective of some of the moves that have happened, but we can get into that. Then we have the revised budget. And then we have the year-to-date expended as of November 30th. So period 5. If you see on the top right, you'll see period 5. It was run today, but it was period 5. And period 5 is basically 41% or so through the fiscal year. And then you have the encumbrances and recs, or requisitions, the amount available, and then you have the percent used and the percent available. Now this is our best thinking at the time during budget development that Trish and I and Sarah and others have worked on the budget. And we just really got to figure out, or hone in rather, on what these budgets look like for fiscal 26. So what you're seeing here is you're 41% through the fiscal year. Up here, you'll see this 31.3% used. And schools are a little different because they don't start until August, but they've got some summer programs. But generally, the overall picture is Brockton Public Schools are in good shape financially for the net school spending side of the house. And we have it by location, and I can get into the details if you want or need me to, but generally, if you go through the percent used and you're less than the 41 or so percent through 5 months of the fiscal year, you're generally doing okay. And what we look at is outliers that says, hey, this is something we need to investigate because it feels off. Or in finance jobs, our job is to explain that all variances. Like, so we need to be able to say to the superintendent and to Troy and to the mayor and the school committee and everyone else, hey, here's what the variance is and here's why. And that is what our job is. And ultimately, I'm going to be asking the superintendent if I could turn this into a memo to explain some of the bigger things that might be jumping out. But all in all, nothing is jumping out to me as problematic as it relates to the school spending. Having said that, we still have some unpaid invoices that might be sitting on desks that are not encumbered to be part of this encumbrance or requisition piece. So that is still a work in progress. We're still working with Troy and Irene to determine how we best do this. But to get true insight into your budget, encumbering and blanket contracts is something that we need to get back to. Because this is just doesn't give us the full insight into the budget. And I can go with line by line. I'm scrolling through it slowly for you to see it, but like, there's no real concern. Nothing's jumping out at us as of right now unless we have invoices sitting on desks that we don't know about. So that is the net school spending side of the house. I'll go quickly through the non-net, because this is where the problem can be. Can you guys see the transportation budget or the non-net?
Yes.
Okay. So this is really where the concern comes in. And, traffic is already at 92% of the budget. That's a conversation we need to have about how that works and what that means for everybody. The other piece is our bus drivers and BPS are at 84.6% spent. And you are 41% of the fiscal year, which this is where you start digging in and saying, okay, what do you need to look at and how do you need to look at it? The overall budget for transportation is $9.9 million. And they're already mostly spent and we're not even through December yet. So we're 61.2% spent, and there's these line items, they're fungible a little bit. We can move money around. These blanks are new accounts and so we got to kind of figure out how to tighten this up. But generally speaking, on transportation is we need the $6 million that's been set aside in the special reserve fund or stabilization reserve fund. And it takes a 2/3 votes out of the city council to get it out. And then we also have a potential deficit that needs to be figured out either through appropriation or through additional changes to transportation to save money. I know that was a lot, and we'll stop sharing for now, but I will open it up to questions because there's a lot going on, and these are conversations we're having weekly. But we just need to make sure that everyone's on the same page.
Thank you, TJ. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to go to Mr. Gomes first, please.
Thank you, TJ. That was definitely a lot. I'm going to try to see if I can nail this down. The first thing that sounds funny to me is that you say we're doing well financially. Then the question is, how come we are struggling? I'm hearing like...
Struggling.
Why are we not paying our bills if we're doing well?
Oh, well, that's a different conversation. That's related to the fact that their contracts need to be adhered to, and they're being sent back based upon not having a contract executed. And that's something we're working closely with the City Hall. We did a grand bargain the other day to get transportation vendors paid because we're converting letters of agreement to contracts with the mayor's signature. The mayor signed 30 of them. So I don't want to conflate the two. But financially, everything seems to be okay. Operationally is where the struggle is coming in.
Okay, so we are spending money responsibly, but it's not moving through the system how it's supposed to be.
Correct.
Okay, and then you also did mention about blank POs and encumberment. Why are we not doing it? Is there a specific
we're working
reason?
on that. That is definitely a priority of the superintendent, myself, and Trish, and others. Because it'll give you good insight into the budget of if you encumber for the entire year all your utilities, you'll have a better sense of what's happening, and you liquidate against that blanket purchase order. it is going to just give you a complete picture of your financial situation. So, yeah, I mean, we're definitely working on that.
It's,
And then we are also working on doing a purchase order as a contract by putting the terms and conditions in the back of the purchase order and adding the mayor's signature to it. The big thing now is the mayor's has to sign anything over 10,000 that's causing issues.
when you say issues, you mean in terms of delaying the process, delaying the payment? Could you elaborate?
Delaying payment, not having insight into your budget, making sure you're going out getting quotes and all the things that go into the contracting process.
Oh my God. I'm gonna ask one more question, then I'll come back to the other ones. Also, you did mention we only had 9.9 million allocated towards transportation for non-net spending. However, we're like 60-something into that budget. What is leading to this expedited expenditure?
Well, the original appropriation should have been around 20 to 22 million. The city council appropriated 11 for non-net.
Mm-hmm.
Over $1 million went towards the community schools and left 9.9 million available for transportation costs.
So what is going to happen?
And now 9.9 is inadequate.
Mm-hmm.
And then the $6 million is set aside in the stabilization reserve that requires 9 votes to get out of the city council into the school department to cover the costs.
And would you say even with the 6 million in reserve, is that enough?
No.
So what's going to happen once we run through all these funds?
2 things could happen. One is that the city council would need to appropriate additional funds to cover the remaining costs of transportation or non-net. Or the school department uses their funds, files an end-of-year report that says they did not meet net school spending, and then the city has to provide the funding. And those are the 2 ways to do it.
Okay, I'll yield for now.
Thank you. I'll start with Ms. Azak, follow-up, please.
Thank
Not
you.
follow-up, your first question, sorry.
It's okay. Thank you. Thank you, TJ. I appreciate that presentation. If we can get, we can either get that email to us or maybe a hard copy sent to us, just so we can review it again. And then the concern, one of my concerns is we don't know what hasn't been paid. How can we get a list to our superintendent, to you, to Trish, invoices that have not been paid? I know that they're waiting to get contracts and things like that in order, but we also need to know where we stand with what hasn't been paid. Can we request that from the city side?
Yes.
Give us an itemization, because the superintendent, we had a finance meeting earlier, and I admit I laughed. I thought it was a joke at first, but we were on Teams because our Zoom account, we can't use it. It hasn't been paid. As small as a Zoom account. So Zoom account to transportation. You know, they were on Teams, but this is going to affect our day-to-day operations. Our superintendent is running a district of almost 16,000 students, but staff, she doesn't have time to run around and see what bills have been paid or haven't been paid. So I understand, you know, she's getting calls and stuff, but if we had a list that she could actually have. So would it be Mrs. Boyer? Would it be you? Who would request that from the city side to get an itemization of what has been paid and what remains outstanding? Because you need those numbers to see where you are with your chart as far as what remains open to get the percentages accurate, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So who can request
that? No, the request has been made. The conversation has been had with Troy and Juan in Irene's office. The chief procurement officer on behalf of the schools, Rich, has been meeting with the city auditor's office to help determine that. And my understanding is that a database is being built of what's been paid, what hasn't been paid. Having said that, Munis has all this information as long as you're using Munis appropriately and putting in and scanning and attaching all the documents related to a purchase.
So even though Munis has it, it's easier to have just a printout of unpaid invoices. I mean, that's how I look at it. I don't have the finance background, but hand me a packet of this is what's not paid. We know, okay, we got to prioritize. Not that someone is more important than the other, but we can't have our students not having transportation. Things that are really affecting our students directly and affecting our operations as far as running our school district. You had mentioned, so actually, is there a time frame? Do we have like a time, like we need this within 10 days, 10 business days? Like,
I mean, the good news is that the city has paid all transportation invoices, as far as I know, related to our agreement that we were doing by converting the letters of agreement to contracts. And that was a sign of good faith of us on the BPS side trying to move to the contract side, but also on the city side to pay the bills. So we're making progress. It's probably not quickly enough for any and all of us to want, but I think Superintendent said it well. It wasn't broken overnight. We can't fix it overnight, but we definitely want to make sure that we're all on the same page on trying to move it forward. Because I think everyone agrees. You can't have a kid sitting outside waiting for a ride that doesn't show up.
no, I appreciate that. But as a school committee member, and I'm sure my colleagues probably feel the same way, I'd like to know what hasn't been paid. And I just don't want to wait. I'd like to put a time limit as to, 5 business days. Give it till at least, maybe next Wednesday. We need to know what is outstanding so we know where we stand as far as when we look at your report. So if we can, as a committee, maybe later on request that from the city. I mean, if it's as easy as them hitting a button and Munis will tell you what's not paid and they can just print it out and send it to us, that shouldn't take 5 business days. But I understand everyone's got a workload they're working with, and just to give them enough time to get that information to us. But I would like to put some kind of...
I just, sorry to interrupt. I think it's available now, if I understand that Juan and Rich met today and figured it all out today.
Okay, so as long as Juan and Rich can keep our superintendent, Trish, and you up to date, that way our superintendent can notify us. I'd like to see what's outstanding, so we can keep an eye on things. We don't, it seems like every day there's a surprise. Every day there's something new. And some of this craziness, you can't make it up because sometimes you just sit back and going, okay, this is, again, here we go. So the other thing is I was a paralegal for over 20 years. I get the contracts. You have to protect yourselves with contracts. But why now? Why now? So, I mean, we entered into an agreement with companies and they provided a service. We need to pay them, and it was budgeted. I understand the contract. I get where the attorneys are coming from. I'm not disagreeing with it, but we've already entered into agreements for this year that our superintendent is spending time focusing on getting our bills paid. And it's actually embarrassing. It's embarrassing. We call ourselves the city of champions. It's embarrassing if we can't pay our bills. But we have the money. We have the money. You even said we're in good shape. We have the funds. It's just getting this. We have to protect ourselves with contracts, support it. But maybe like you mentioned, they're doing like a letter of agreement and the mayor's signing off on them. Certain ones have to be a little more detailed than others. I get it, but just to get us through, and then we can have a more detailed contract. And I mean, that's probably something we can discuss with our attorneys, but as far as holding up the bills, you're not going to be able to get your numbers to us without knowing what's still outstanding, correct?
So yes, so two things to that. There is a meeting that we have every week or every other week about how to solve some of these things. The contract issue is, once you know a contract is needed, it's hard to look the other way. And I think the superintendent presented extremely well last week that we know we need to do better and we know we need to fix it, but we need to do it in a way that makes sense operationally. And that's where the struggle is coming in. Is we're trying to figure it out. We're trying to satisfy the law. We're trying to satisfy 30B, the procurement law. And we're trying to figure out a way to make it work. And the superintendent's cabinet and team have done a great job working with the city solicitor, trying to figure it all out, prioritize. We're making decent progress. It's just not enough to help the students of Brockton or to move the needle, just because we got to do a little bit more. But my conversation with Troy and Irene, they've definitely have helped and moved some stuff, not enough. SPED was new to me this week, that there's some providers that are not getting paid yet, and they need to have contracts. And we're working with Jamie and special ed services. And so we're on top of it. We're trying to figure out solutions. And, it's not, doesn't make you feel any better as a school committee member, I promise that. But we're definitely working towards solutions. And we just got to try to move quicker. And I have a meeting with Irene tomorrow, the city auditor, to work on other bills and other areas that we need to address.
I appreciate your response. It's just the frustration on my part as a school committee member is I see the frustration on my superintendent's face when she's getting calls and bills aren't being paid and she's getting pushback. And as a committee member, I need to make sure that we put our students first. And by doing that, I need to support my superintendent and make sure she has the tools that she needs to move our district forward and not get the pushback when it comes to finances. So
there's a breakdown in process.
Yeah, I mean, it is a process, and it's just, maybe I'm just expecting like, okay, we'll have the information that you need. It's just, and I noticed some frustration at our finance meeting. It's just, there might be communication with certain members, but they need to communicate with TJ, they need to communicate with Trish, Mrs. Boyer, they need to communicate. Everyone should be part of that communication and not just choppy pieces. We need better communication so everyone's on the same page and everyone is aware of what's going on and where we stand. And if we can, and it's not directed towards you, TJ, at all. It's just, I think we just need better communication overall, because it is frustrating.
You need better processes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yes, I agree.
I mean, the only thing, I'll just give you an example. So if a requisition is entered into Munis, it goes through workflow and it gets converted to a purchase order. The purchase order goes out to a vendor. The vendor says, okay, great, I got a purchase order. Now I'm going to provide the goods and or services. And then the purchase order is a promise to pay. And now they're required to get a contract, which is new to them, with all these other forms that go with it, which is not wrong. I am not suggesting that, but just the process is broken. And there's just we need to do a better way of either looping in whether it's the law department or the chief procurement officer or delegating authority, which he has done, to the school department, but just making sure that you have everything you need to check all the boxes to get to everybody paid. And that is not going to be fixed overnight.
No, definitely it's not. It wasn't an overnight issue. And it's definitely not going to
Yep.
get fixed overnight. So thank you so much for for the update.
Thank you, Ms. Azek. Any new questions before we do a follow-up, Mr. Gomes? Ms. Vice Chair, please. Ms. Vice Chair, you have the floor for a second, too, okay?
Yeah, I get
Thank
that. TJ, I know that you are getting contracted through BPS. I know Desi sent you here relative to the deficit. When you look, I'm going to put you on the spot. When you look at our school budget and you look at overall city budget, school budget versus city budget, what is in good shape and what is not in good shape?
Generally speaking, I think the city has some challenges based upon the fact that they've used all their stabilization reserve funds and maximize their revenue to bail the city, or the schools rather, out, to bail them out, and have caused that to be a problem. And I do think they're going to be strained in fiscal 26. I think fiscal 25 is going to be okay. I think they're going to do a great job in finishing up 25. At least 24 is going to have certified positive free cash. And 25, we'll have to wait to see, but I think it'll be okay. But citywide, Brockton's going to have a little bit of a struggle.
When you say struggle,
But the school department, as their appropriation is sufficient for operation, and I agree that you do not want to run a surplus or a deficit. You want to run as close to zero as possible, and that is the conversation we have weekly. That an education system is not the same as a city. You're not trying to run a surplus. So. And I'm not suggesting that anyone suggests otherwise, but the 7.3 million carryover is a real, and it's good for Brockton schools, but there's something that got missed in that. We did put that in place. That was intentional. There was, conversations through the last year plus that we were going to make decisions of that's going to help the Brockton schools come out of not have a deficit.
So on Munis, it reflects 8.4, but through Desi's formula, it's 7.23. Now, the school side had to agree to that. If the school side didn't agree to that number, what was the ramifications for that relative to the school department and the city as a whole?
Well, great question. The issue that we come into, the 8.4 that Trish and I and others have run for 8.4 million, is changed by the fact the way Desi counts the end of year report and doing budget versus actuals and some weighted categories that had brought it down to the 7.3 or 7.29 or whatever. That is by virtue of what's hard-coded in Desi's end of year report. And it is by virtue of how they approach some of their expenses or some of the expenditures on behalf of the schools.
So did the school department or the school committee have the ability to basically say, no, we don't agree to that 7.3, it's 8.4?
That's an excellent question. I don't have an answer for that. The way the end of year report's filed shows that 7.3 that everyone can get agreed to. And so we just got to figure out, and our job is, for Trish and I, is to be able to reconcile and to explain it. And even if you don't like the answer, we just got to be able to explain it.
Okay. Now, so where does that remaining balance go?
It should be ready to go. It's in a journal entry waiting to be appropriated to different line items. And so that's ready to go. Irene and I just need to talk tomorrow and figure out where to put it in a holding account, and then it's going to come for the school committee to be appropriated into wherever you see fit.
So I'm asking the difference. So there's a, what is it, a 1.6 million, 1.7 million difference in the 8.4 to the 7. That's the carryover. Where does that remaining 1 point plus go?
I'd have to look at the balance sheet. I haven't seen the balance sheet to know if it's, I think it caught up in the end of year report calculations that are changing it a little bit, but I would double check that.
Okay. Now, the reason why I'm asking is because before this new committee took effect in January and November, myself and the former Ward 3 school committee member, we looked at it. The city CFO put in this position control, which, we can argue 324 all day because that's the topic of conversation now, because you've been in a position for quite some time now. You want to argue 324 or whatever number you want to add to it, but it's this body here that says what positions are to be added. And I clearly stated that in that November meeting, and you can watch, that this is being intentionally done as a stall tactic to make sure that there's a surplus to mess with our Chapter 70 funds. That's how I view it. It's clear as day. I mean, it needs to be more detailed when it comes to a level of authority on who has that authority to put in any type of position control.
So I'm not going to get into the way in Chapter 324. However, the way net school spending calculation works out, that deliberately doing a surplus doesn't do it the city any good, because they don't get to reap any of the benefits because you're funded at net school spending.
Correct. Thank you.
So,
I think TJ's still going.
Oh, I'm sorry, TJ. I'm sorry. I cut you off. Go ahead.
no, I'm good.
Okay. Before I get Mr. Gomes' follow-up, I'm going to go to Mr. Vega, please, for first.
Just to do like some vocab. When we talk about non-net school spending versus net school spending, what are we talking about? What's the difference between the two?
Essentially, it's net school spending is everything you do to educate a child. Non-net school spending is transportation and adult basic education for the most part.
Okay, and so when we look at the two budgets that, or the updates between the two, and we see, hey, in one area we seem to be tracking below what we should be spending. In another area we're tracking above. Can we move money between the non-net spending and the net spending?
No.
Okay, so
I
think that's just important for people to know, right?
Good
Like
question.
they're two very separate buckets. Yeah, I'm sorry, TJ, go ahead.
Yeah. No, yes, you can move it, but you're going to have to file your end of year report as a non-net school spending eligible expense. So if the transportation takes an additional 2-3 million, whatever, you can grab it for your net school spending. Then you file your end of year report. The city's going to have to reappropriate it.
Right. So they need to be.
So the
treated
best
separately.
thing we can do is work together and figure out the solutions.
Right. So in looking at at where we're tracking in terms of you said we should be at about 41%, but we're averaging somewhere to 31% or so. Does that include? You mentioned that we're not able to encumber funds right now. So if we did, what would be your guesstimate to how much that 31% would jump up?
Good question. I don't think I have an answer for that.
Okay. Is there any chance
And I just
that
don't know what's sitting on people's desks. I mean, if you just think about it, for last May, we did a push to pay bills, and it was like $7 million in 1 month.
Okay. So is there any risk that even though it looks very positive right now, where we see 31%, but we should be tracking at 41, so we're 9 to 10% lower than that we, once we realize what bills are left to be paid, that we jump above 41%?
As long as we stay vigilant and Trish and or I present to you monthly and we review it as often as we do, I think we'll pick up on stuff before it becomes a problem.
Okay. Okay.
But I do think the superintendent needs to ask her staff to keep track of all the invoices that exist that may not be encumbered.
Okay. And my last question kind of
And it's
deviates
an
from.
extra step that is unnecessary based upon Munis and the ability to encumber it, but it's something that we would need to do just to stay on top of the finances.
And my last question, so you've had the opportunity to do this work, obviously, in other school districts. Does the law require us to ask state contracted entities to provide additional information, to sign into additional contracts or agreements, or is that unique to Brockton?
Not usually. There's usually some boilerplate language that cities and towns would have to enter into, or school districts would have to enter into. It shouldn't be anything extraneous.
Is what we're asking for extraneous?
I got to look at the rest of the forms you're asking for. Typically when you're on a state contract, they've done the due diligence. You follow the OSD, Operational Services Division's guidelines, which is sometimes submitting 3 quotes or getting 3 quotes from state contracts, and then but I recognize that there may be a desire to have a separate contract, but I wouldn't go through all the hoops that are required or necessary, because all the work has been done.
I see. And do we have any sense of what percentage of our outstanding bills or invoices are tied to state contracted entities that have already gone through all these hoops?
In my professional opinion, you should be using state contracts to the extent you can.
Okay.
Because that is the best way to get through procurement and to get things and services rendered or goods delivered.
Dr. Tigliani, I don't know if Ms. Boyer, is that information that maybe we can get at a later point to get a sense of how much of the unpaid invoices are actually to state contracted entities?
Absolutely,
Okay.
and just to let you know, that's what we prioritize doing, is
Okay.
buying off state contract, because it is the preferred method, but absolutely.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Before I go to Mr. Gomes, I'm sorry, Mr. Sullivan, I forgot about you, I apologize. Did you have any questions at this time before I do follow-ups?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Gomes.
I have a few questions, but I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned that sparked my attention. You said that while Mr. Rodriguez was asking about the 7.3 million, you said there was something that was missed in the process. Could you explain what that something is?
I don't remember saying there's something that was missed. The issue came when you enter in all the numbers from Schedule 19 and Schedule 1 on the end of year report, it spits out 7.3 million.
Mm-hmm.
If you run a year-to-date budget report, it shows 8.4 million.
So where is that?
And that's the
difference in
explanation
amount?
all right, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Where's that difference in the amount between the information from the Schedule 19 and the end of the year report?
That is, in my estimation, that the end of year report DESI hard codes a bunch of numbers that based on budgets, not actuals, and that is what's causing the discrepancy.
Would you be able to pinpoint as to where we overestimated and we used that number, and that's why the 8.4 went down to 7.3?
I think Trish and I should be able to figure that out.
If you could,
And that might be a DESI conversation of whether or not they need to look at something differently, or we just have to accept the way they do it.
Okay.
It's weird.
Thank you. And now another question, either for you, Superintendent, or Trish. The bills that have not yet been paid, how far behind are these?
Very. I would say the majority of our bills.
Majority of them. And You also, would you agree that majority are transportation, other services?
No, it's everything. I would say actually transportation, private transportation are the ones that we have started to clear out. But it's everything, all the bills for any, yeah.
And then just for clarification, these contractors have always worked with us, or at least majority of them have already, they've been in the system for years, they've been getting paid from us for years, correct?
Correct.
And then we are in the process of getting all these contracts, or all the stuff that the city is requiring to get them paid, correct?
Correct.
So then my thing goes to you, Mr. Mayor. I know the staff at the city work under your leadership.
Correct.
Could you direct them to work with the superintendent paying these bills? Because they're so far behind, and I know contractors are reaching out to us as school committee members.
And reaching out to me too, Council.
And there's nothing that we can do in our end. And, you know, seeing that they're very far behind and we are working to get the paperwork that the city is requiring, can we get these bills paid? Because it's going to take time to get all these documentation from the contractors. And then some of them might be even upset and be like, I don't want to do these paperwork. I've been working with the city for years. It's been fine. Why is now an issue? Beyond the point. But could you direct your staff to pay these bills, to, you know, you having to sign all the paperwork that you have to sign, and directing, you know, if it's the city auditor, the city solicitor, the CFO, to pay these bills while we get these contract signs, while we get these forms for contractors. Because it's going to take time, and then the bills are going to keep accumulating. And it's getting to the point where they're not accumulating, they're stopping.
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer that. I mean,
Yes.
this isn't my rule or reg, right? And whatever the school committee did in the past or the city did in the past, this is the law, right? This is the law. We have to abide by I'm a lawyer. I mean, we have to abide by the law. So I hear you. I mean, I know Mike Silva. I've known Mike Silva forever, you know, and I feel bad when he reaches out to me. But at the end of the day, we're trying to, right? Megan Bridges is a great lawyer. She's working with Kim Sy, as I said. We, in good faith, signed on Thursday the 21st and Friday the 22nd. I went over to the school department, afternoon, morning, signed them. In good faith, I signed 10, and we got them paid. Priya, to her credit, gave me 20 today to sign. I'd rather not sign them, I'll be honest with you. But at the end of the day, that's the law. I'm being directed by the lawyers that this is the last piece. And it's not Sullivan, this is what Mass General law says. So we are working. I mean, the Amazon, again, Superintendent made a good point on Amazon. That's been paid. It's not going to happen overnight, but I can tell you that we are, on the city side, truly working on this because it's a priority.
Yeah.
Joe, and I know he's in the back, he comes to my office every morning. He greets me at City Hall. He's the mailman. So I will meet with him again tomorrow morning and see how we can fast track things. But again, the law is the law, and I'm trying to juggle it, to be
No,
real.
I appreciate that. And then a quick question. Is this a new law, or has it always been there?
It's not a new law.
So how come in the past we paid these and we barely even had, it was a verbal agreement for some of these folks that work for us. So we've been violating this law for years.
Certain things by previous superintendent came to me to sign, certain things, a lot of things did not. So I can't tell you why it didn't, but it's not a new law. Mass General law is clear, procurement law is clear. I do know that there was a void on the school side with procurement. And Mr. Morris, who's been working for the city 20-plus years, he's trying to help. Rich is there now. But we'll work at it again tomorrow. I mean, I sense the frustration of everybody. I really do. And it's not fair to the mom and pops that are trying to pay their bills. I said that when Pastor was here that day. But again, it's a slippery slope, but we need to get to where we need to be. The LOAs are not necessarily contracts per se, but we agree that that's something we should do. The blanket POs is something that Attorney Sy and Attorney Bridges are working on, and we need to get to where we need to be.
And for my own understanding, in the past, these bills would also come to the city to cut the checks, right?
A lot of them would not come.
So how would they get paid?
Though they'd get paid. Maybe Dr. Clark can share that with you, but
Yes, I mean,
some contracts, the vast majority of the contracts never came to me as the CEO, and they were supposed to.
So where would the funds go to pay these folks?
Troy, can you share that, please?
Because it's funny to me that I also noticed this, we're on Teams because our Zoom account is canceled. We didn't pay the bills.
Yeah, I just found that out from Joyce. I didn't know that, so.
Exactly.
Kind of.
And that's something that's like, it's Zoom. You get Zoom or you get nothing.
This question goes to the heart of the issue that's facing all of us.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know about Zoom either. Ms. Boyer knows that we have a credit card, and if the Zoom bill needed to be paid, it could have been paid. The city's used the credit card before. But the overall issue, I think, this frustration that we all feel goes to the heart of the issue. One of the things that's been said tonight many times by many people is that things were done a certain way for a long time. But I think we need to recognize that doing things that certain way for a long time resulted in an $18 million deficit.
Mm-hmm.
We are now almost halfway through this fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
And someone said tonight, I think Member Azak said, why now? And I mean this very sincerely. I think that was an excellent question. And the answer to that is, if not now, then when,
Mm-hmm.
right? I just don't know when we can have a date where the contracting laws and the procurement laws are fully followed. And so we, the city, have made, and I'm not asking you to believe this, I'm stating it because it's incontrovertible fact. We have made tremendous concessions. And I have sent several emails, and we've had discussions, publicly and privately, about what the law is and about what we need to do. And it's not easy to be over in the city and to not pay bills. But I think, if not now, when?
Yeah.
And so when we learned that the transportation vendors were shutting them off, we didn't say, okay, well, too bad, you have to comply with the law. What did we do? We discussed it, we reached a compromise, and as I've said many times, we paid the bills so that services were not interrupted. But that was not a one-off, right? Mm-hmm. The mayor said today, what we did was, rather than full compliance with the law, which would be contracts for transportation vendors, we said that the letters of agreement, which don't, as far as I know, I'm not a lawyer, Attorney Spotterfor can certainly opine, but a letter of agreement is not legally a contract. Mm-hmm. But what we said was, look, let's at least get the mayor's signature on it, and these letters of agreement that we've known for months and months and months, even prior to Dr. Tahiliani, this is not her fault, but didn't even have any rates on them, right? We have information from 3 different sources, Nystrom, Beckham, and Paris, and your own audit, and the Open Architects report that talk about the problems with school transportation. So we've known for many months, again, prior to Dr. Tahiliani's arrival, that these letters of agreement didn't even have fees on them. Mm-hmm. And so we have to, at some point, improve the process. And I know it's painful, but we are in the unenviable position of, someone said it tonight, knowing that we're not doing things lawfully. So we have to make adjustments and progress. And we're almost halfway through the fiscal year now, and I don't say this in any way to be flippant. It's a sincere question. When do we get it right? Is it at the end of this year? Do we give ourselves 2 years? I am not being flippant. I'm asking a sincere question. This needs to be a group solution. But what we can't do is continue to fight about it. We're doing the best we can, but we have to make some progress. I cannot stand in front of the public on June 30th and say, well, we tried, but we just couldn't get there, and we have another deficit. That is not an option for any of us. And so the challenges and the processes, whoever we want to point the finger at, that got us to this point, we all know, and so we are all obligated to put systems in place to prevent that again and to comply with the law.
Thank you. No, I completely agree with you. And I think we are doing that. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go back to something you said. Well, my question first is, the bills needed to be paid. I know the schools were not cutting the check, so how were they getting paid?
Yeah, I think, and I'm not going to put words in the mayor's mouth, but I'm not certain that he completely understood the question the way you asked it. The answer is the bills were paid.
So the
By
city
the
was
city, of
paying the
course,
bills,
yes.
even though there were no contracts not paid?
Absolutely.
Okay. And I agree with you, we need to get these contracts and everything in order. But the fact is, it's not gonna happen overnight. And we have bills that have been sitting there. So, in working in a group, as you said, is we pay these bills, and we are currently getting these contracts. So the fact that some bills are still on hold is a problem. And I say that because we are working with the contractors to get these contracts, but they're not getting paid. One, they're not gonna cooperate with us. And then two, they stop in the service. That's not helping us. You know, maybe by next year, and the other thing too is, this has been mentioned in our previous meetings, is that the superintendent was given this request that we need all these forms. Fine, great, you know, the law says we need those, we do. But no timeline was provided. And they wanted it overnight in order to pay the bills. And then we had to go back and forth a lot, and then you guys came to, you know, and decided we'll pay these bills. But there's still a lot, and we over a few millions in bills that need to be paid. And if we're waiting for all the contracts for these individuals are not gonna wait for us while we're working with the city to get all these documentation. They're gonna stop servicing our community. And that's not something we're looking forward to. I know you wanted to add something.
Superintendent, please.
I would agree with everything that's being said here, except for the fact that we were having these meetings to work out these processes. And during none of these meetings was I told that bills were piling up and they were not paying our bills.
And that's the other thing
So
too.
I appreciate, yes, we need to be working on this, we need to be working together, but when you say, if not now, when were you guys gonna tell me you weren't paying the bills? Why was that not something that was communicated to me?
Hold on.
Months in
That was a
advance.
question.
Well,
I kind of want to
so-
hear the answer to that question.
That's not honest.
So
correct.
the wheel still continues.
Mr. Gomes, you have the floor, please.
So I'm interested in the answer to that question. Like, why was no communication, no awareness brought forth that the bills were not being paid? And the other thing too, it was mentioned in our last meeting, which I was very upset, we came here to meet, but nothing's being done, is that the superintendent and other folks requested a list of all the bills that have not been paid, and nothing was provided.
But see, that,
So that
that's
that helps
that's
us
not true.
working with the
It's
contractors.
just not true, right? I have to believe when a member of the school staff, Richard Calderon, meets with a member of the city staff and reviews the unpaid bills. And this is, again, a sincere question, because I'm growing very weary of the back and forth and the finger pointing. And I mean it when I say we need to stop pointing fingers and start extending hands.
I'm just asking
But this is
questions.
a legitimate question. If a member of the school staff and a member of the city staff get together and review the purchase orders that are outstanding, is there an expectation amongst anyone in this room that someone else is then going to take a step and make a notification that those meetings occurred? To me, when those two folks get together and say, okay, here are the bills, and this is what needs to be paid, this is what needs to be done, those folks got together again, I believe, today to quantify. And I can tell you, because I just sent the email to DJ, the aggregate number that I have for those outstanding bills is about $900,000. There may be others that I'm not aware of. But to answer Member Vega's question, right, when you look at the percentage that's been spent to date, and you add in, let's say the bills total $900,000, that that's about a 0.5%. So it doesn't tick the meter up to anywhere that would be a concern. And I understand the superintendent's question. I'm disappointed that it's characterized that way, because we have, I think, a fundamental disagreement about my role and what I'm supposed to be doing. And I believe that at several times during the last several months, we, in general as the city, I specifically as the CFO, have expressed some pretty profound concern about the lack of progress that's been made to address the issues that caused the deficit. And I know that the solicitor, on multiple occasions and in multiple emails, has laid out the processes that were necessary to legally comply with the requirements for procurement and contracting. And I know that the auditor has had many conversations with the school business manager about our expectations. And so I don't know how many times I can say we need to move forward, but I don't know what the expectation was that if we asked, pleaded, begged, that we make some progress to comply with the law, that how long we were supposed to go without taking action. And so, you know, it's frustrating for all of us, but I will repeat what I continue to say. What we need to do is figure out a way to make this work. And part of that is correcting the mistakes of the past so that we don't repeat them. And that is my most solemn responsibility.
Mr. Gomes, you still have the floor.
I agree with everything you said, but I'm gonna say this in the light of looking for a solution moving forward. Bearing in mind that we've paid all the bills for years, not checking any contracts. It went through the city, it got paid. The mayor mentioned himself, he's never signed anything or seen for some that were paid. And I understand we had a deficit, which brought a lot of this to light. But that also means that a lot of people were not doing their jobs. I'm not pointing a finger, I'm just saying. As a new member, I'm trying to get all the understanding to see what happened and the best thing to do moving forward. But bearing in mind that for years, we've been paying these bills, not questioning how much, not questioning where's the contract, where's the agreement, where's the invoice, it's been fine. And yes, the deficit has brought it to light. Now, in the light of moving forward, what I'm asking this body, the mayor, yourself as the CFO, is that now we know the issue, right? And we try to fix it. The superintendent and the administration of the school knows what needs to be done. The city knows what needs to be done to have all the paperwork and have everything in order. However, we have outstanding bills. And the things that are required to be done to avoid the mistakes of the past can happen like this. But the bills need to be paid like this because they're being provided from the outside. Otherwise, the services rendered to us are going to stop. And we don't want that to happen. So in the light of moving forward, my solution to this is that we pay the outstanding bills, and we know, and we're going to hold the schools accountable to provide the contracts that we are currently trying to gather from all these contractors, all these vendors. Now, I don't see how this is so hard for us to understand because we know we're not going to get every paperwork, everything right away. But we know that the bills need to be paid. If I was working for you guys, for the school district, for this community, I want my bills to be paid. I can't wait months after months after months to get one check. And then I got to wait a few more months to get a check from 3 months ago. In the meantime, I'm working with the schools to get all these paperwork to you guys, but I need you guys to pay the bills. Does that make sense? And I think that's the best solution. That's us working together. We know the school now knows we need all these contracts in file. They're working on it. It's going to take some time. But bills are going to keep coming into the city to get paid, and they're just being held there, some of them. That's not helping. That's where the frustration is coming because now I hear you, and we definitely should avoid making the same mistakes that have been made for years without any questioning. But we need you guys to work with us. We need these bills to get paid and bills that are coming in to continue to get paid while we're working with these vendors, with these contractors to be, hey, you know, we're going to keep paying you. You've been working with us for years, but we need these paperworks. We need these documentations. Come in, let's talk about it. Let me explain what these means. Let me tell you what documentation we need to be in your file. Does that make sense?
Not only, Member Gomes, does it make sense, I think you just described the exact process that we followed to get those transportation bills paid, right? We decided on steps that needed to be taken to make incremental progress to come into compliance with the law. And once that progress was made, the bills were paid. And I believe that that's the exact process that the team has followed when Mr. Calderon and Mr. Gonzalez got together last week and went through a list of some 300 purchase orders and looked at who those vendors were, what procurement needed to occur, what contracting needed to occur. So I believe that that effort that you speak of is underway. To add, I think, to that, you're absolutely right that that process wasn't followed during the tenure of Mayor Sullivan. But I think it's fair to say it wasn't followed in the tenure of many mayors and many superintendents and the prior chief financial officer. So, but the difference now is that we understand and are aware of what happened, and we have to take, we're all responsible for taking positive steps
I
to correct it. And so I don't think anyone in this room, in fact, I know no one in this room wants vendors not to be paid. But I also know that in our heart of hearts, all of us want us to do things the right way. And so what we have to do is find that balance. And I think our teams, you know, are working together to make that happen.
And then one more question. You mentioned something very important in regards to the bills. So what's going on with the bills that are far behind but have not yet been paid?
So again, what I believe has happened is that the procurement officer, as long as he's with us for a few more days, and the assistant auditor for the city got together because the auditor was out sick unexpectedly, and quantified the list of bills that are out there. And they got together, I believe, again today with the auditor and the assistant auditor and the procurement person to try to understand which can be paid right away, which need more work. And so the suggestion that you've made, I believe, is happening right now. And we have a list. I provided it tonight to TJ. I'll gladly share it in the morning with the superintendent or when I go back to my chair. But the staff work has been occurring.
So for these bills, I know you guys are looking at it, but they're from like few months ago. Can we pay those? I know we're working with these vendors to get all these proper documentation, but they've been working for us and they've rendered the service. Whether we have the documentation or not, we have to pay for that.
Right, and the answer is yes. I think that's why, but
can we, I guess, let me rephrase my question, I'm sorry. Can we pay those bills now while we're working to get the contracts and stuff?
So can we? Of course. Should
so
we?
So why are we not?
Well, because we're having a bit of a circular discussion now. It goes back to, I think, the discussion we had a few minutes ago, and the same dynamic as the transportation bills. And we're almost halfway through the year, and so, you know, there has to be some improvement in the process because we are all accountable if we don't improve the process. Yeah. And so when is it the point that we draw a bright line and say, well, these vendors are providing a service. They may not be legally contracted. They may be working in excess of their requested contractual limit. There may have been no procurement. You know, the transportation vendors are probably our best and most glaring example that we spent millions of dollars and hired contractors with a letter that didn't even define the fee for service. And so the question for all of us is, at what point do we make the necessary corrections to the process so that we're doing things lawfully? And that's what I think our teams are working on.
No, I completely hear you. So one thing, and when you mentioned progress, so for some of the bills that have now been paid, you guys have received the documentation that was holding those back, correct?
Well, yes and no. I think that's another excellent point.
So to add to that, so there is progress. Something is being done. These bills, I can't rephrase it any other way. They need to be paid. Whether procurement wasn't done properly or whatever, the service have been rendered. Now they get paid, so the vendors, you know, stop buzzing our ears or like, because as a vendor, I can't wait another day while you guys figure out if the paperwork is in order. I have people I need to pay. I gotta eat.
Can I give you an example?
Sure.
The ones that's happening right now. So as we are figuring out this process, because I gave you an example of a timeline last week, right? Where it took several months to execute a contract, right? Because that's sometimes what it what it takes. So that's what it was with our transportation vendor. So right now, I know that we all know that our courier services are one of the ones that have stopped. And so in order to fix that and provide the appropriate paperwork, because it would be over $10,000, we would need 3 quotes, and then we would need a contract. Now, it came to our attention that the courier services also provide the service to the city. So I asked if we could simply amend the contract that the city has to include our courier services, and then we could just pay it back in chargebacks, right? We could pay for it that way. However, then I got back the response today at a meeting that actually there is no contract for that because it falls under $10,000. However, when Attorney Sy and Attorney Bridges were working together, and I have this in writing, it's actually over $10,000. So as we talk about not knowing rates, not knowing the services that we're providing, I want to be clear that that is not just broken on the school side, that's broken on the city side. Because if I'm hearing from Attorney Bridges that it's costing over $10K, and I'm hearing from Mike Morris and Dr. Clarkson and the mayor that it's under $10K, and nobody has a contract to provide me to amend or not, then which one is it? And so these are the conversations and the circles that we go through as we're trying to get our courier services back on track. So I just want to be very clear that it's very hard to fix our processes when the process here has clearly been broken for so long, and there is an investigation to show that, and it is on both sides. So it's very hard for me to know the protocol to follow when not only is there no communication, but the guidebook is not great.
So
Just point of information as the chair, because I looked into that too. I found out about this today. I didn't hide anything from anybody. I was told that the city was paying $700 a month to this gentleman who was under 10 grand. He's back there. I meet him every morning, like I said. Procurement officer said that originally it was a piggyback between the city and schools. It had been procured. There was contracts. His contract expired the end of June. He was told in good faith he was going to get one in July. He gets $4,100 a month, but he does 22 schools or something like that, right? He's been doing it for 2 decades. But I never said it's not broken on both sides. I think it is broken on both sides. But at the end of the day, the gentleman has to get paid. We have to pay him. We need the services on the school side, city side. But I will tell you, in good faith, I found about it as well today. So do we need to figure it out? Yes. Will we figure it out? Yes.
simple question, has he been paid?
Not as of today.
No. What are we waiting for? Because then they're going to, you heard the process. We need to do the procurement and everything. Because if it goes, above 10, but he hasn't been paid. He's been providing services, and he's been working both for the schools and the city, but we're not paying him.
He's been paid on the city side. He's been paid.
So that means he's legit, and we're working to get the paperwork done. Can we pay him for the services provided to the schools? He's working for the city and the schools.
Claudio, he's going to get paid. What I was told by him directly is that Mr. Calderon, Mr. Morris have been working for procurement to deal with him to get 3 quotes. He's had to do that in the past. His quotes are always a lot lower than anybody else. He has 2 people that work for him. He is going to get paid. He is going to get paid.
So apply this to the other vendors.
Right, I think Mr. Clarkson said that
But
they will
the
get
time
paid.
that's going to take to get everything done in order for them to start getting paid is going to cause some serious problems. The courier service has stopped. Imagine our transportation, imagine
Transportation has been paid.
It has been paid, but I'm just giving an example. Imagine all these other services that we use that are provided to us stop as well while we figure out the procurement process and have them sign paperwork. That's my concern.
And while the district leadership team yesterday, instead of debriefing on the DESE visit we had for a school that requires additional assistance, instead we were figuring out how we are going to provide our own courier services among the district leadership team and our principals. So, and we're trying to figure out what to do while I'm getting the answers to these questions about, can we jump on your contract? You do have a contract, you don't have a contract. Wait, how much do you pay? Do you know how much you pay? Like, it is, to me, this entire thing is outrageous. And So, yeah, so now you're looking at the highest paid courier in the state because me and my team are providing courier services. I mean, I'm sorry, this is unacceptable to me.
I yield.
You yield, thank you. Ms. Azak had a follow-up, followed by Mr. Vega, followed by Vice Chair, please.
Okay, I'll make it really quick.
Okay.
Not to repeat myself, but when I said, why now? This has been going on for years and years and years, and many of these vendors are on the state. They've already been approved by the state. Those that have been approved by the state, why can't we push them through? They've already been approved by the state rather than refer to Mass General laws. Also, who does it fall back on? I get it, they're blaming the school side, but who on the city side is supposed to make sure we follow MGL, the procurement? I mean, you're just signing off on all these bills for years, and it's not just your administration, Mayor Sullivan.
Definitely not my administration.
Previous administrations for years and years and years. How is it getting through city side? We're never gonna probably know the answer. We can speculate, but why now? It's December. They've provided a service. Our superintendent needs to focus, and I know I'm repeating myself for those watching that constantly say I repeat myself, but our superintendent needs to focus, and her team need to focus on providing services for our students and not chasing bills to get paid. So again, those that have been already on the state website, why can't we move them along and focus on getting them, it doesn't make sense. You're doing double the work. They've already been approved by the state, and let them go through. And I get contracts. We have to. It's a law. But we got to get these paid guys. We really do. So I know it's a long night for us, but I'm just going to keep it short.
Thank you, Ms. Azak. Mr. Vega, please, followed by Vice Chair.
I think it's important to note that, as we're talking about what the superintendent's office does, what the city side office does, that we're only talking about the third participant in this conversation in a very pejorative way. We're talking about the vendors, and my question is, have we provided an opportunity for the vendors to be a part of the conversation? More specifically, what I mean by that is, have we approached the vendors and made them aware of what we're trying to achieve and asked them when can they fulfill their part? When do they think they can, whatever the remaining contract, whatever the remaining paperwork is, have we asked these longstanding partners of the city and the school district, when will it work for them to get us the materials that are needed? In that way, we've talked about partnership a lot. We've tended to think about it from the standpoint of city office and the school's office, but I think that's a piece of the puzzle that we're definitely missing. The idea that we could expect vendors to pivot so hard, it doesn't really speak to collaboration. So I do think that as we think ahead, right, and this probably isn't even possible, right, but if we had known we were going to make these transitions, and I agree with them, I think they're critical, could we not have said to our vendors, by the end of Q2, you need to have the following into us. Until then, we will honor our obligations to pay for services that are being rendered and that we need to continue being rendered. But you have until the end of Q2 to get the paperwork that we need in place. Was that something that was ever posed to our vendors?
It's a great question. I don't know if those conversations occurred through the school finance office with the school vendors. I do know that those conversations did occur with some of the vendors that had amassed significant balances in excess of the totality of their contracts or ones that weren't procured. And in those instances, I think the city had extensive discussions on behalf of the schools with those vendors, and in many cases made payments for services that were rendered without contracts or in excess of maximum contract amounts, precisely because of the theme that I've struck many times tonight and before, because we recognize that those vendors, many of them are local folks. And so I think earlier on, in this crisis and how it's unfolded. I know that through the law department, many of those conversations have occurred. More recently, I don't know, but I think it's an excellent question and a good suggestion.
And I would even throw out there, does Dr. Tigliani have the ability and the authorization to be able to enter into those kind of conversations with the long-term goal being to secure the contracts and the legal documentation that we need to move forward? I think we're all in agreement in that. But if the superintendent is in constant conversation with these vendors, does her office have the ability to enter into that sort of agreement? Again, in saying that, that puts a lot of accountability into the superintendent's office if vendors do not come through on whatever timeline is put. But is that something that the superintendent's office can do?
I think that I don't want to offer a legal opinion, but I think that the collective team, yes, has the authority to do that. I don't think the superintendent has the authority independently to make those commitments. But I think, as we've done in the past, working together, the school's law team, the city law office, the finance team most certainly can make those sorts of commitments. And I think that's what Member Gomes was talking about. And I think that's what when Juan and Richard got together, that was their objective, right? Is to try to do just that. So I think there's significant progress being made. We're in a better position than we were a month ago, and that's the kind of incremental progress. And I use that term a lot, both in writing and in conversations. And so I think we're making significant progress.
Well, and I appreciate that. I think that kind of creativity is going to be key to making things work, and that kind of trust in that, that the superintendent's office can manage those conversations and relationships. Before I close out, because his name's come up a couple of times in this meeting and past meetings, Pastor Mike Gilbert was here a few weeks ago, and he spoke during the hearing of visitors, and at that time, he had addressed an outstanding invoice that had only been paid that day, and he felt like it was really mostly he was very appreciative, but also felt like it was a lot of fist waving and complaining and begging for these things to happen. He wrote to me today, and he's like, "You need to read this, Jorge," and I told him I would, but I'm not going to. But I think it's really important. He's back in the same situation he was several weeks ago. He's back in the situation of paying his drivers out of the wrong bucket. And as a result, his company is suffering in ways that they shouldn't be. He's a responsible local Brockton businessman, and he has planned out his fiscal year, he's planned out his budget, but he's unable to live by the budget that he's put forward because he has not received payment from the school district. So I think, when we have these conversations, it is essential that we invite these long-standing partners to be a part of the solution. We can't simply tell them, turn your business around and dance to this new beat that we're playing. I think they want to get there, but they need to be a part of the conversation. So yeah.
I think you raise an excellent point, because either I was here or I listened when that inquiry was first made. And I think one of the things that we need to do a better job of, and when I say we, I mean the city, but also the school finance folks, and that is having those conversations and setting clear expectations, particularly with those smaller vendors, about what is a reasonable time to be paid in. Because if a vendor, any vendor, a small mom and pop transportation provider or a multi-million-dollar construction company, has an expectation that an invoice is going to be delivered and paid within 14 days or something like that, that's not, it's certainly not an industry standard in municipalities, right? And I'm not talking about just Brockton. TJ will back this up, I'm sure. And so, if our standard or our commitment is to pay net 30 or net 45, then I think we should have conversations with our vendors to set clear expectations so that smaller vendors understand that when they create their business model, there isn't a disconnect between their expectations and what the industry norms are. Because, and I'm not saying every community does this, but in my experience, 30 to 45 days is a pretty standard payout but for the time between when an invoice is submitted and when it's paid. So if we have, and I'm not saying the pastor expected something sooner than that, but
He's on day 61 currently.
okay,
Yeah.
so there you go. And so I think we need to set clear expectations. And again, I think this is something that the school finance office can and should do, is have conversations with those vendors. So the transportation folks, when they're contracting with folks. I mean, there's lots of areas for improvement here, I think, so that everyone understands the rules.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Chairman, please.
Roughly about 2 months ago, just a little bit over 2 months, we sat in the GAR room with all the finance folks. In that meeting, I clearly asked the question, is our services going to be stopped? And if it is, I need an answer so I could come back to my colleagues to see what action that we can take, up into including legal action. Trish Boyer was asked by the city side, can you give me a date of how long it's going to take you? She clearly stated, I can't give you a hard date because there's a lot of things that need to be done in place. City side agreed that they weren't going to interrupt that. And I truly believe that agreement was because I stated lawsuit. The second meeting was on Zoom, which nobody attacked you. I was speaking the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts. That's plain and simple. I said the same thing in that Zoom meeting. Do I need to move this forward to the committee to take legal action? And I went to the superintendent, and I spoke to our legal counsel on that. We do not want to do that as a collective body because it doesn't look good. This body has a lot of authority, and we can do that with a simple vote tonight. A simple vote. And guess what? It's not just a lawsuit from this committee, but from the parents, the advocacy groups, vendors. It's going to cost the city a lot more money, money that's already allocated and budgeted that's sitting there. You know, so it's frustrating. It really is. You're trying, as you could say, you're trying to build a plane as you're flying it. And we have to work together to make sure that this process is fixed. The other piece is that, and I said this, I know the chair wanted to add a finance update regarding, in our standing agenda. I disagree with that because it's a disservice to the city and the community and the superintendent, because she should be talking about teaching and learning during this meeting, and we're spending a lot of time talking about finances because certain employees on the city side didn't get what they wanted, and now they're putting roadblocks on the school side to make it look like and paint this picture that the school department is the problem. And then you have city councilors painting that picture that the school side is a problem. It's factual information. A lot of this stuff is in black and white. We're not making this up. I'm not making this up. I speak on facts on black and white. And we're trying to move forward. We, as you said, we have to work together. But from where I sit, the school department's doing a lot more than what the city side is. You have individuals, I'm not going to say who they are, 2 individuals that are upset they're not getting their way and putting roadblocks on the school department.
Vice Chair, do you have a question?
And the other piece, it's a statement and a question,
Okay.
is, Mr. Clarkson, what are you doing to make sure that you're supporting the school district? It's going to be a late night tonight. In your role as the CFO.
I'm happy to answer that question.
Yeah, of course.
But I do, and I haven't spoken publicly about those Zoom meetings. But, Mr. Vice Chair, since you bring it up, I will gladly disagree. That I have, both in public here at this meeting and in those Zoom meetings, I think been subjected to treatment unlike which I've ever witnessed in my career. So I would have to disagree. It was not speaking the truth. We can disagree, and we can do that agreeably. but I think I have been profoundly disappointed with some of the behavior that I've witnessed that's been directed toward me and some of those discussions. So there's ways, and I mentioned this at this last meeting, I think I would implore members of the school committee to choose your words carefully, because words have meaning and people are paying attention. I happen to not think that threatening legal action is helpful. I think it's incendiary. Because
Not to interrupt you, if that's what it takes to get these bills paid, then that's what this body has to do.
But your interruption, I think, is emblematic of the problem, Mr. Vice Chair. That is exactly the problem that we have with this dynamic. I think that the city can and would demonstrate in response to a legal action that would take up more precious public resources and take them away from students. To just have the discussion we've had tonight. We've made more progress tonight in this discussion than in probably any other since I've been appearing before the school committee, because I think there's been a joint recognition that we need to make progress and we need to take incremental steps to improve the process. But in answer to the question of what have I done, I have, since the deficit was revealed, and in fact it was in August, I have worked tirelessly, probably harder than I ever have in my career, and more hours than I have in my career. I devised a plan to save the city from bankruptcy and to cover the $18 million deficit that was incurred by the Brockton Public School Department. And in doing so, worked with our city council and our state partners and our finance team and the school finance folks to devise a plan to allow us to continue to operate as a body politic. I'd say that's pretty significant. And since then, developed systems in concert with the incredibly hardworking people on our teams, the auditor and the assistant auditor and the budget director and the treasurer collector, and on and on and on, in hours of meetings, trying to devise ways that we could create some accountability, which we did. You know, that $7.2 million, we can call it a surplus or a deficit, but what it is $7.2 million that's available to invest in the future of this city through the students. And it was available, and we didn't have to come up with money because we didn't run a deficit. That's what I've been doing. And yes, I know folks have been frustrated, people in this room. But my obligation, my solemn responsibility is to take steps and to ensure that we never again face what we faced in August of 2023. And so I come to this meeting and I go to the city council and I answer emails, and never once, not once during this period, have I behaved in a way that if my mother was watching this program, couldn't be proud of the way I've comported myself. And I think when you ask what have I done, that's probably one of the most important things, because I've tried at all times to be part of the solution and not part of the problem. So, you know, I think there's a lot of work left to do, but we're able to have this discussion tonight because of what my team and I did in the early days of this deficit.
So you're basically saying that city-side investigation is false on page 140. That's what you just said.
No, I don't think I said that at all.
You said it was in August, but page 140 clearly dissipated your communications with Mr. Petronio.
No, I think
so. That's false.
Yeah, I don't know.
So that's false.
I don't know what it says on page 140.
So that's false.
Well,
so I think you should read that. My
Mr.
question.
Chairman, this is exactly the problem.
A question. The problem is you, Troy. Here's a question. Invoices get to the city auditor. When she processes that, does she not look at our budget to see if the money is there when she pays those bills?
Well, but that, as we've discussed, I think at length tonight, Mr. Vice Chair, there is more to it than simply ensuring that there's an appropriation to pay the bill, right? And that just ensuring that there was an appropriation was the problem. And so there's a whole series of steps that need to be taken, and work that needs to be done on the city side and work that needs to be done on the school side to ensure that when that bill is presented for payment, the legwork has been done to present it in a lawful way.
So you can confirm tonight that the school side budget is accurate and there's enough money in our budget to pay our services and goods?
I've never said there wasn't.
Just a yes or no.
Well, no,
So you're saying that we don't have enough
I won't
money?
conform to your requirement for a yes or no answer. It's a question that begs a more detailed response, sir. TJ and the folks at Open Architects and my office and Ms. Boyer's office work very closely together. And that report that was provided to you tonight is a result of many hours of work from lots of people, mostly TJ's team. But I think that report shows that, yes, of course, there are more than adequate resources to pay the bills of the Brockton Public Schools. But I don't think anyone at any time has said anything other than that. So neither I nor anyone else in the dynamic has said there's not enough money.
So that's a yes.
The question is process. Is there enough money to pay the bills? Yes.
That's what I asked. Like, you like
Well, I
dancing
understand.
around.
Decorum,
like, I'm
please.
asking a
Decorum,
simple
please.
question and you're dancing around.
Oh, but I'm not dancing
Decorum,
around.
please.
Wow, you've been doing this forever.
But I'm not dancing around. 'Cause
I yield.
Thank you.
So you can't
Just
get
point of
anything.
information for two things, if I could. I don't know if anybody, City Council meeting was mentioned last night. City Council did meet as a finance meeting last night. They did vote on the transportation bus depot at the fairgrounds. There'll be a formal vote, and Mr. Claxton was there to speak on behalf. There will be a vote next Monday. And at the end of the day, we're going to have a long agenda tonight. Is there anything else on this matter? Seeing none, we'll move on.
No.
Mr. Plant, thank you very much for your time tonight. Oh, Mr. Sullivan, I'm sorry, before TJ goes, did you have any questions, Tim?
No, all set.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Plant.
All right, thanks, everyone. We'll talk soon.
Thank you. We'll go back to 3A, please.
All right. All right, so we do not have oh, should I take this off? I have multiple mics. All right, so let's talk about some of the faces behind these numbers. So there's a lot of great stuff that's been happening in the school department. I do want to start on a bittersweet note. Tracy, am I doing? Did I pointing the wrong way? Did I not try? Oh, thank you. Should I try? Yeah, okay. Oh, yes, working now. Thank you. All right, so as I had mentioned at our prior meeting, the Angelo School went into Thanksgiving break, as it normally does with its annual turkey trot, which this year took on new meaning by honoring former student and avid runner George Levi Jaguna. His family was on hand to celebrate the occasion and to recognize the 4th and 5th grade students who ran in their respective races. The winners of the 4 races each took home their own trophy named for George Levi, and future turkey trots will continue to honor him and his legacy. Each year, our 3rd and 5th graders get to take a special tour of the Fuller Craft Museum, and this year's round of tours is off to a great start. Students have gotten to explore 3 major exhibits. One features wearable art made from buttons. Another looks at the dynamic intersection of art and athletics, and another focuses on quilting. Students have been engaged, asking insightful questions, and doing pre and post activities in their classrooms while they're making keen observations, in which they are making keen observations. Also, 30 Brockton High School students were chosen to take part in the Southeastern Massachusetts Senior District Festival, which will be held at New Bedford High School on January 10th and 11th. Of the 30 Brockton musicians selected, 19 received all-state recommendations and will have the opportunity to audition for the All-State Festival. Their success is made possible in part by the support of Matt Cunningham, Andrew Fantuccio, Kevin Cardell, and all of the music teachers who have guided students throughout their musical journeys. Come January, we'll have 11 band students and 19 chorus students representing Brockton at the festival. Brockton High School also, their urban landscape design students took home second place prize at the invitation-only Project Green Schools Innovating for the Future competition. Students presented on their plans and aspirations for improving the high school's courtyard and greenhouse, which are part of an effort to make the school greener and provide BHS with essential outdoor space. For their efforts, students earned $2,500 to support their work on these projects. Students working under the guidance of Miss Ellery American have some big plans for the courtyard focused on four key areas. 1, introducing native plants to attract wildlife. 2, promoting sustainability by composting vegetable scraps from BHS Food Services and utilizing rain catchment to support the courtyard's pond and plant life, and harnessing solar energy for the greenhouse and pond pumps. 3, they're generating revenue for the program by organizing a student-run garden center, selling plants like herbs, houseplants, vegetables, and flowers. And 4, fostering community engagement by installing BHS-built picnic tables for classes to use and conducting student-led workshops and events. There have been some other great events over the last couple of weeks that I wanted to highlight as well. Going clockwise from the top left, Champion High School hosted its cultural day right before Thanksgiving, which I was fortunate enough to attend, with students and staff bringing in foods and sharing songs and stories that represent their cultures, and there were also school committee members there as well. At the Ashfield, students in the National Junior Honor Society collected generously donated food items and assembled food baskets for those in need. At the Kennedy, Channel 5 meteorologist Kelly Ann Chicalisi stopped by to share some of her knowledge about weather with third grade students. Students from Northwest, Ashfield, Davis, and South all had the chance to march and play their instruments in the city's annual holiday parade over the weekend. And Arnone welcomed a reptiles expert who brought along lizards, frogs, and other reptiles for students to see up close and learn about. And finally, Plouffe celebrated Freaky Fridays, part of its Spirit Week, with students and staff switching roles and dressing as one another, as you can see on the bottom left. And now to highlight ongoing learning for our educators. On Election Day, staff from throughout the district were together for a full day of professional development. We started the day with a visit from keynote speaker Adam Strom, whose work with nonprofit Reimagining Migration focuses on the role schools play in promoting belonging for immigrant origin youth. He led a thought-provoking morning session and gave those in the audience at the high school and remotely at our other schools the chance to discuss times where they felt like they belonged or didn't. And then staff moved into sessions where they had the chance to work collaboratively to explore what belonging looks like in our schools and how it affects their work. We talked earlier this year about the incredible National Professional Development Grant that BPS is a part of, and I wanted to offer some updates on how that work is going. We had 152 applications for the first cohort in this program, with 45 applying for pathways 1, 2, and 3, which are comprised of licensed teachers interested in obtaining their bilingual education endorsement, unlicensed teachers of record, and paraprofessionals who are in need of support in obtaining their educator license and bilingual education endorsement, respectively. 41 applied for Pathway 4, which is open to community members who have teaching degrees in their home country, and 66 applied for Pathway 5, which is for community members who hold content degrees in their home country. Those who meet the criteria of the grant are being invited to a program meeting on December 14th at the Arnone, where they will get an in-depth overview of the program, participate in small group interviews, meet the Pathways coach, and take the placement exam for their pathway. And on January 4th, we'll have our kickoff event again at the Arnone. We had our 4th successful multilingual resource fair last month with over 25 community organizations and BPS departments participating and helping to forge direct connections between members of our community and essential resources that are available to support them both in school and beyond. So thank you to everyone who helped out to make this such a great event. And finally, for our families, just a reminder that our multilingual or English language learners are invited to a special information session later this week where they can learn more about their students' language learning journeys in BPS. The event is at 6:30 p.m. Thursday, December 5th at Plouffe, and there will be translation services available. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Any questions for the Superintendent on what was presented? Seeing none, we'll continue to move on.
So thank you. The next item under teaching and learning is the Reads Collaborative Annual Report from 2024. So you have this in your packet. And so just as a reminder, this is our first year in the Reads Collaborative. So this is the first annual report you have received. So if you look through the report, it just talks a little bit more about the Reads Collaborative, the services that they provide, you know, how they've been going, their strategic plan, which they've created this past year. And just so that you're aware, we have used 2 of our evaluation slots so far, and we have 13 students currently enrolled. And so I'm happy to answer what questions I can. We're pretty new to the collaborative, so we've had 2 introductory meetings thus far, but what I can say is that this is a wonderful opportunity for our students, and I'm very happy that we are a part of this. And it's just informational, so there's nothing to approve.
All right, we can move on.
All right, so C, items to refer to subcommittee. I don't believe there are any items this time.
I have a facility scheduled for the 10th, and I know Mr. Sullivan is not available. It's pending. On that day? What about the rest of the week? Can we confirm, if I can't do it on the 10th, can we confirm the 12th, that Thursday? I need to have that meeting so we can, on the next scheduled meeting on the 17th, to take a final vote.
Can we do the 12th, because the 10th, South has the holiday concert.
All right, the 12th, are we in agreement for the 12th?
Do you have a quorum?
I just need 4 members,
Okay, because I'm
but I
supposed
need
to
it
be
to
traveling.
facilities.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll schedule for the 12th. I'll get back to you guys with a set time and location.
Perfect.
Thank you, Ms. Vice Chair. Any other items to refer to subcommittee at this time? Seeing none, that concludes the report of the superintendent. Thank you, Superintendent. Agenda 4 is the consent agenda. What is the will of the committee at this time? It's A, request for authorization to accept proposal expenditure of funds, FY 2025 IDEA Individuals with Disabilities Educational Act Grant in the amount of $4,935,047. FY 25 Workplace Safety Grant in the amount of $40,000 even. And then Project Bread FY 24-25 Breakfast After the Bell Collaboration Grant in the amount of $11,000 even. What is the will of the committee? Take them collectively or out of order?
Motion to accept consent agenda as stated, 2A, 2B, and 2C.
It's the form of a motion by the Vice Chair. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second was made by Mr. Gomes. I'll read the roll at this time. Mr. Vega?
Yes.
Mr. Gomes? Yes. Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Those pass unanimously. We will now go on to, we did Agenda 5. We took that out of order. Number 6, is there any new business before the committee tonight? Number 6, any new business? Seeing none, we'll move on. School safety and security was police liaison. I know Officer Mosley's here. I know Lieutenant Banaka is here as well. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
brief, and then you can.
Good evening, Lieutenant.
Good evening, Superintendent and Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chair, school committee members, and those in attendance. So for the school safety, I'll actually give you some input. Last night with our law enforcement partners, we did get some information from the FBI of a school threat. Although after hours, it was obviously pertinent, and it was also important in order to evaluate and eliminate the threat. Prior to the start of school, the superintendent was notified, but we actually did, with school police after hours, we actually located the address of where the threat originated from, and we actually went to the house, spoke to the parent, and actually did a search of the house with consent. And it was determined that it was not a valid threat, but we did locate it within the confines of the city of Brockton. And that threat was dealt with and eliminated. Should it not have been, then we would have had to have notified the school department and the superintendent that we could not distinguish that from either a valid or invalid one. So importantly, we did take care of that. Earlier today, there was a fire on Otis Street, and we had some concerns. I received some calls whether or not there would be any traffic delays or any spread of that fire to the, let's say, the Plouffe or the Edison Academy. That was not the case, and I notified the superintendent that there was no traffic issues with regards to Otis Street, and traffic did flow freely. There was no threat to the public at that time. And I think I'll give it to Officer Mosley to conclude, and I'll give it to him.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Good evening, Officer.
Good evening, everyone. I'll keep this short and sweet. Just want to give a shout out to Officer Fernandez and Mendez and Silva. Last Thursday, they went out and delivered food to some of our families in the city for Thanksgiving. What else is there? Oh, we have the test coming up next week for the exam for hopefully potential new hirees. Like I said, I keep it short and sweet. That's it pretty much.
Thank you. Any questions, members of the committee for Lieutenant or Officer? Vice Chair, please.
How many candidates do we have that signed up? I know last one we gave, there was about 80 to 90, so what are we looking at for this test? Or is that too early to tell? I wouldn't know. Okay. The lieutenant might know, but I wouldn't know. We can follow up after. All right. Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Officer. That concludes number 7, School Safety and Security Police Liaison Update. Number 8 is the announcements. Are there any announcements from the membership? Ms. Azek, please.
Sorry, I'll make it really quick. I've been getting emails from a lot of either parents, guardians, staff members that have sent in coat requests. I'm probably about 95% done. We did run out of some sizes, so I did reach out to Cradles to Crayons to see if I can switch out some of the sizes. Unfortunately, you know, it was, for some reason, size 7, 8, boys and girls was very popular this year. So we'll do the best that we can. There's a large amount of families that I wasn't able to distribute coats to, so I will try to email them. But those that have been emailing, we're still working on a handful of schools, just small number to get them done. But like I said, 95%, and some of the volunteers have been phenomenal, like Dr. Liza Wilson, Linda Pizzi is my rock star, the two of them, my mom. So we've had a lot of volunteers, so we did get them out, and thank you to the schools, and it was amazing seeing a lot of our adjustment counselors, our principals. It's amazing to see how many bags of coats they can fit into their vehicles. They're determined, and they got them out, so I just want to thank them. They're always thanking me, but I want to thank them for doing what they do for our students. So we will have something at the end once we're all done, thanking everyone. But if you haven't gotten a coat, we're working on it. So give me another week or so. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Azek. Any other announcements? I just want to do a couple different things. This weekend, Brockton High School Drama Club, performance of Clue in the Little Theater, the Rum Little Theater. That's why we're here. Friday and Saturday performance are 7:30 p.m., Sundays at 6 p.m. I want to thank all the participants. We had a wonderful holiday parade last Saturday, and a lot of you marched in it. The bands were there from the schools, the high school, It was the biggest holiday parade we've ever had in the city of Brockton in terms of participation and volunteers. And then also, and I actually walked in with Ms. Oliver, Brockton High football Thanksgiving, awesome win for the Boxers. So, yeah, I know, sure, it was cold, wasn't it? Vice Chairman.
Yeah, unbelievable parade. Thank you, Mayor, staff in your office, and everybody that was involved.
Thank you.
But one of the nicest pieces, I have to give a shout out to Chief Brenda Perez and the police department, school police, Lieutenant. That tent was unbelievable. The way they had it set up and the kids going in there with all different activities, taking pictures with the Grinch and all the characters that were in there, and then also the little train ride. I know we handed out some goodie bags, but I think we didn't have enough. I think we're going to have to double up or triple up on that. But it was great to see the city come out. They look forward to it, and thank you again for your office stepping up to make sure that the parade is actually keep moving forward as it's a great tradition for the city.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I want to thank the Superintendent was marching as well, and Sergeant Nicole Anderson and the One to Wonderland was phenomenal. So we'll continue to do that. But again, kudos to everybody that participated, volunteered, and joined us there to cheer us on. We'll go on to Agenda 9. If there's any other announcements from anybody, seeing none, we'll move on. Number 9, and I want to thank Attorney Spotterford. Sarah's here. I have a revision of something I just have to read, but let me just read it, and then I'll take a motion. Executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair so declares. As chair, I do so declare. BEA, BESPA, which is BESPA, IBAA-TEA, Teamsters. That's the first matter. The second matter has a revision to the verbiage, and it is as follows. Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiation with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, superintendent's contract. Those are the two matters. I do need to take a motion relative to these to go into executive session.
Motion to enter into executive session as stated.
Motion was made by Vice Chair Rodriguez, properly seconded by Ms. Azak. Now I need to call the roll. Mr. Vega?
Yes.
Mr. Gomes? Yes. Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Azak? Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well.
There's no Zoom, so there's no.
Sarah, are we allowed under the standard to call? He can. Mr. Sullivan, we're going to call you, okay? You did via vote.
Okay.
Okay. So I do also just have to say that as of now, we do plan to come back into open session. Much like 2 weeks ago, if it's decided that we aren't, I'll come back to let BCA know. But as of right now, we will be coming back into open session. We will have executive session now in the same room that we always do. Thank you. We are back into open session. Members of the committee, after we take a vote, we will be going back in for the second matter. We will not, after that, we will not be coming back in open session. But we're here now. Mr. Gomes, please.
I'd like to make a motion to accept and approve the MOA between Brockton School Committee and Teamster 653 Police Officers Contract.
Form of a motion.
Second.
On the motion was made by Mr. Gomes, probably seconded by Ms. Oliver. As the chair and as the mayor, I have to say I respect and honor and thank the school police. I really do. I've known a lot of them for a very long time. But as the mayor, I'm going to be negotiating contracts with all the unions on the city side as well. Last year, I had a meeting with the school and city unions, including the Teamsters, as a result of being asked to do so by Secretary Gorkowitz and Lieutenant Governor. I said that we need to make sure we do cost containment measures. I appreciate parity, I appreciate this contract, but in good faith as the mayor, I can't because other unions have already reached out to me that they want the same percentages. So I wanted the public to know that, and I will continue to work with all the other unions as well. But we're in dire financial situation right now, and as a city and as a school district, we need to make sure that we do cost containment measures. But there was a motion on the floor. It was properly seconded.
On the motion?
On the motion, please.
Just quickly, I want to say that I think we have to be fiscally responsible as we look ahead for numerous reasons, right? And I think we also need to respect the security audit that was recently done. And it really does call for a deepening in the relationship, but also the training and the facility of Brockton School Police. So I think that more than anything else is influencing my decision.
Thank you, Mr. Vega. I just have the record reflect Mr. Sullivan has not joined us today, and as we said earlier, in the regular scheduled meeting, Mrs. Sullivan had informed both myself and the vice chair that she was unable. I just want the record to reflect that. So motion made again by Mr. Gomes, properly seconded by Ms. Oliver. I'm going to call the roll at this time. Mr. Vega?
Yes.
Mr. Gomes?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Vice Chair Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
He's not here, and I'm a no. It passes. It passes. So we will conclude this executive session matter. We are going back into executive session, but again, for BCA, thank you for being here tonight. We will not be coming back in open session. Oh, I'm sorry. Do I need to get a motion on that?
Motion.
Motion was made to go back into executive session by Vice Chair, probably second by Mr. Vega. I'll call a roll call to go back in. Mr. Vega?
Yes.
Mr. Gomes?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Vice Chair?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. Thank you.